Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new edition of Low-Code Cafe, episode 63. My name is Bogdan Litescu. I am the CEO and founder of Plankton App. And for those of you that are new to this event, I can see a couple of new faces. Know that this is a community event. It's mostly a technical event where we showcase new features, new techniques to get stuff done with low code. But also we are announcing upcoming releases. We are telling stories from our support channels, and sometimes we even have guest speakers. This event is being recorded, so then all past editions are on our YouTube channel, and you'll learn a lot of stuff from them. And also feel free to engage with us in any manner possible, Q&A section in Zoom or the chat window. There's also a feedback form that we'll post in the chat window in a minute or so. So usually we have the same agenda. So for today, I will be giving you a bit of updates about upcoming releases. And then we'll get to hear stories from the trenches with Dale Warner, our head of support, basically looking at some new techniques that circulated on support channels or community forums. And then we'll get some training updates with Radu, our head of training. And finally, the largest chunk of this event will be reserved for seeing some hands-on low-code development. And this week, we are continuing the FullCalendar demonstration from last week. So if you haven't already seen it, make sure to visit the YouTube channel and see the first part as well. Cool. So that being said, just to give you a brief update of where we are with the current release of 1.16, it's currently in alpha, which basically means that we're only solving items that are important or critical before moving it to a private beta. We are hoping that this will happen by Friday. That's our goal. And tomorrow we'll already start deploying it on our internal systems to see how it behaves in production-like environments. And then either next week, or if the time is too short, the following week we'll make the public release as well. So what's in the 1.16 release? We have a couple of new features, some very cool features like the Facebook Google login integration. We've added this actually in our OpenID connector that's already in the product that can also connect to other data sources already, such as we've used it with Okta, AWS Cognito in the past, Azure AD, so any provider that supports OpenID. But of course, for each provider, there's particularities, and that's why we are releasing it one at a time. So very cool feature. And then we've added this feature to open listings in pop-ups. If you probably it's very modern nowadays that everybody opens forms in pop-up, so you keep the experience in one place. So we've made the same experience for listings as well. So it's a very good feature that was a long time coming as well. We've also added new triggers in the automation screen, or how it used to be called Sharp Scheduler screen, that is triggered when an error occurs on the instance. So this is very useful to automate because some errors are more important than others. Some might result in some actions to send emails, while others might result in different processing. But now you have the choice to decide how to handle errors by using the same workflows, for example, that you build in Plankton App. So it's a cool gap that we filled there. There's also some very important security announcement, most important of which is probably upgrading, making 9.6.1 as minimum required version. This 9.6.1 came with a lot of security fixes. We are already using 9.10.1 right now as our baseline, but I think 9.6.1 should be the minimum. It will provide maximum of security. I mean, not maximum of security, but the most decent amount of security for a DNN installation. We've also upgraded dependency, we've upgraded Angular, we upgraded some jQuery in some places where it's still being used. because these libraries also come with a lot of security updates as well. Cool. And I mean, these are just the high-level items. There are a lot more improvements that we've made, some related to the developer experience, being able to debug much easier, workflow numbers, action numbers, for example, in workflows. But also, for example, the next one, the entity dependency tree, which from what I know, very few people use this because how we had it before, it will result in a big tree that it was very difficult to navigate. We've improved that, so now it only shows the direct relationships of the entity that you are selecting, and then you can navigate by selecting child entities or parent entities. So it becomes so much easier to navigate. Also, we have made quite a few improvements in the dynamic CRM connector, improving a lot of stuff around date processing and things like that. So that's also a very good feature. And what I will do for next week, as we get very close to release, I will also prepare a short demo of these features, so then we can see them in action. But in the meantime, I mean, now we are in the final stages with making the 1.16 release public, but development on 1.17 already started on this Monday. And 1.17, the major goal for us would be launching the free plan and an app templates engine. So basically, this will be a very cool thing, and I will get the chance to show it to you as we progress to this release. Basically, you'll be able to start new plant and app instances from a template. So from an incident management template, from an event management template, things like that, which are meant to both accelerate development, but also very cool to learn, to learn by seeing how it was done. And this will also be part of the free plan, because people will come, will self-onboard, and then part of their experience is not to start from scratch, because starting from scratch, it's a learning curve, which rather will cover better than I could right now in terms of Low-Code Academy and everything that's happening on that front. So as I was mentioning, development already started. We are expecting to see a release in at least a private beta early November, and I will keep you updated on this front as well. Cool. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy regarding the roadmap, but also regarding everything I just said. I'd be happy to take them. Otherwise, I would like to move on and take it to Dale to give us the stories from the trenches.
All right, hello. From the trenches this week, first of all, wanted to mention that I have put links on the chat that include a variety of things. Today we're going to be talking, Radu is going to be talking about FullCalendar, and so the link to FullCalendar is on there. For our DNN Sharp clients, there's a discount deadline looming at the end of October, so Chad Weiss's email address is on there. The Low-Code Campfire, a lot of the things that we talk about here, we get into deeper in Low-Code Campfire. It's a more interactive experience, so there's an opportunity to register for that. And then our recordings and our feedback form are also there. So all those things are on the chat. And if anyone came late to the chat, you might not see it, so I'll do it again. Just paste that same stack of things on there. Hopefully you can see it now. And Ben is being funny here, so yeah. But then Bogdan was talking about we're getting ready to come out to private beta with 1.16, and so we'll be updating our live systems to version 1.16 as well. that we do that in advance of when we release it to you, so that it gets some bake time on some on production systems that we rely on every day, so that it gets, make sure that it's ready for you. So I just say that to say, watch for our maintenance announcements. We typically 2 days in advance, we let you know, just so that anything, if you're trying to enter tickets during our window of maintenance, or perhaps some other things that you might interact with on our sites, that you'll understand why there might be some unavailability. We tend to do that during the daylight and morning hours in Romania, and so that typically, for lots of people, that avoids avoids the same overlap with the window. Beyond that, I wanted to talk a little bit about entity objects. We had some questions this week on the support channel talking about entity objects, and so I'll begin to show you some things that we can do with them, and then again I'm going to point to, there's more in Campfire, but we'll get to that. So the first thing that I wanted to demonstrate is just that you can use entity objects, for example, to export to CSV or Excel. And I have a demonstration of that set up. So I have a download form. It's got a get users button. If I click the button, I get a file, Campfire 63 file. And when I click it and open it up, this is a CSV file. And I'm just going to expand all these columns. So I've got this putting out the information from the users table: user ID, username, first, last, email, display name, just as it comes. So first I want to talk, I'll just show you about how I created this particular output, and then we'll do some fun things with it. So we will edit this form, our download CSV form. And I'm going to open that in a new tab so we can switch back and forth easily. So the Get Users button has some actions on it, and it's 3 things. And I think we've talked about these before in Low-Code Café. Pretty straightforward. We do a load entities SQL. So we're running a SQL statement, getting all of our users with the username that has test in it, and we're putting them in order. But that's going into a users entity. The users entity, we are going to serialize that entity into CSV. I have checked the include all fields, and I want a comma field separator. I'm sending this to a file that is going into my temp folder, and the pattern of the file name that I'm creating is Campfire 63. I'm using overwrite as my duplicate handling method, so that the same file is just going to get overwritten over and over again. If you need a unique one, you can choose rename, and it'll make sure that you have a unique name every time. The output of this is going to be a URL to the file. I'm going to grab the relative URL and give it a name, so that relative URL will hold where this file, a path to this file. And so I can use that to redirect it and force a download. So those are the 3 actions that gave us this result where we could click Get Users and get an output. So a couple of things that there's some kind of variations, some easy variations that we can do on the entities. And one of them has to do with column names. So if we look, and I'm going to download this again and take a look at it, we have column names. These column names come from the select statement. They're the column names of the from the table. And so if we, for example, wanted to change what columns were output, we could, in our serialize, manipulate this. Instead of saying include all fields, we could just tell it which fields we wanted to include. Now, I had been playing here earlier. I'd forgotten that I'd done that. But this is going to get fields from the user's entity. And so it's going to just output a field FN, which is the abbreviation for first name. So we're taking we're having two output fields, FN and LN, and we're putting the values first name and last name into those. So since that's already set up, I'm going to save it and run it. And so when I do that and open the file, I just get 2 columns now, and it's just and they've been renamed to this different name. So one technique that you can use is to specify the columns that you want to come out and essentially rename them, create names for them. And so that's one way to massage your data if you need to import it into some other system. So let's take a look, and I acknowledge that what we're about to do you can do in some other ways, but just to kind of illustrate how things will work, I am going to I'm going to work on adding properties. I'm going to add the full name column. And again, this could be easily done by manipulating the SQL, but I wanted to show that we could add column properties, and so we'll add the full name column. So I'm going to just copy this get users button that we've created, and I'm going to rename it to get users full name button and let it auto name so it has a unique name. So we have the same 3 actions, but this time we're going to add another action. It's going to be an execute actions on entity list. And I'm going to stick this right after where we've loaded the entities. So this is going to loop through all the records in our the entity that was created and let us work with it. And so I'm going to take the user's entity, that was what was created, and that's going to be what we loop through in our execute actions on entity list. And the action that I want to do is a extend entity. So I'm going to look at my entities and extend entity. And in this, I want to add a property called full name. And the value of this property is going to be, we have access to the user's entity. So we're going to take the user's entity first name, and then entity, let's see if I can type it here, last name. So it's going to extend our entity to add a new property called full name that's going to be based on the first name, last name. And that's it. So this is going to loop through this will loop through each record, and that action that happens, the action list that's going to be executed on each entity is going to extend it to add a full name column. We're not going to change the CSV, serialize. So let's save and try that out. We have to refresh so we can see our new button. And so we have get users full name. And I do need to left it with, you guys give me comments all the time. You like it when I make mistakes. Well, I made a mistake. I said that I'm only outputting these columns because that's where I left it. So I'm going to include all the fields from the entity now. And so save that and try again. And so now when we click on it, we get all our fields that we had originally, plus the full name column has been added. So that's one way to manipulate an entity. I've done a demonstration in Campfire where, for example, you might show most records, but conditionally suppress certain values, things like that. There's a lot that you can do with that manipulation. But that's just one example. And since I'm doing okay on time, I'm going to go on to the second example that I had, where you can add rows, other records into the output. So let's take a look at what that might be. We have this output, and I'm going to copy the same one, get users, that also has the full name, but I'm going to say other record. And so the idea here is we're going to add a row. You could add multiple rows. You could add rows from other sources, but we're going to add rows to our output. And so what we're going to do then is in this load entities SQL, we have these different columns that we're adding. We're going to use the same set of columns, user ID, first name, last name, email, display name. I'm copying these as I go here to make it easier for me. But we are going to use an entities create entity that will be in the same user's entity. We're going to create it, and this will actually go above our load entities. And so we're going to create a number of properties here. And so let's paste some. We'll do display name. I know these are backwards, but it doesn't matter. Last name, first name, username, user ID. And so we'll make up some values for this. This is going to be the host user. It's going to be host. Now this is not a real record in the system. It could be, but it's not part of what we were previously outputting. But we're creating our own record into the user's entity, and then load entities SQL is going to add these users from the SQL table. And so if I'm lucky and the demo gods are working today, this is going to create an output that has an extra record. So we click on that, and when we expand this so we can see it here, we see the same set of records, but now we have an additional row that was just created ad hoc, not from SQL, just added to it. And so that kind of gives you an idea. You can expand things, you can add records, and there's a lot that you can do with entities. Again, there is a contribution in the Campfire that shows more about how to manipulate entities. There's a mapping capability that's demonstrated in there as well, where you can convert an entity from one entity to another. And so that is a technique that you can use to get the content that you're after in an entity. And I know there's a question at an earlier time about how to suppress certain columns or change some, do additional filtering, and copying from one entity to another is one way that can happen. So entities are quite flexible, and I want to just focus on those for a few minutes today. At this point, I am going to ask Radu to step forward. Whoops, wait a second, Jim Anthony, one question. Does the list of fields in the create entity need to match the SQL generated list? Jim, I think you'd find that it would, if it doesn't match, that it's going to create an extra property. So, for example, if you'd added the height of that person, you'd have a height property for that one record. So it's additive. So hopefully, but you know, you should do what I do. Play with it. You can see in this case, I've created a form on a off page somewhere, and with a few statements and 10 minutes work, you can set up a demo and see what it's going to do for you, and then figure out how to incorporate that into your low coding. But thanks for the question. All right, so with that, I'm going to ask Radu to step forward and show us more about FullCalendar. We got a lot of good feedback from FullCalendar last week, and so we're going to extend the capabilities for that. And I will stop my share so that you can jump in as well.
Hello, everyone.
Hey.
Yes. So yeah, let's extend a little bit the work that we did last time. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, I invite you to watch the previous webinar. Last time we created we created a calendar, a basic calendar, and we added to the calendar the opportunity to add events, and we are and the base of the calendar is the FullCalendar integration JavaScript that we added to the platform. So I should start sharing my screen at this point. So you can see my screen. Yeah, I think you can see my screen. The idea was that last time, for example, we created the opportunity for anyone to just drag a space or to block some of the time in this calendar, and after choosing the space, it's gonna pop up the start date, the end date, and you can just give it a with the title, and you have the start date and the end date also, and based on those two, you can just go and create a new event into the calendar. Now, what I like to do today is that I want to give to show you how you can achieve more with this. Not only how you can add, but how you can edit and manipulate the event in this calendar. So for the first thing that I would like to show you today is how to edit some of the how to edit basically an event that it's in your calendar. So by clicking on the blue section of an event, to go and see an edit screen with the title, the start date, and the end date pre-populated already. So when you click on update, to be able to move the event in the calendar, and also to add the delete button. So when you are going to click on the blue square, to when the new form of editing the event is going to appear, to have a delete button also. All right. So to do that, first of all, we'll need two things. First of all, we need to enable the option of the to enable the calendar to support clicks on the events themselves. Then we need to create a form to edit the event. So first of all, let's go and edit the calendar settings that we already have from last time, and enable the clicking on the card itself. So if you remember from last time, this was the code part, and last time we added logic for whenever we are selecting some range in the calendar to open a form, and make this form the one that's adding the event. At the same time, what I'm gonna add right now, and I'm gonna go and use the documentation that the FullCalendar has, is the idea that I want to enable the event click. So whenever I click on the event, I would like to get some code to execute at that point. So from this perspective, I will just go, and maybe I should replace this for the moment. And I'm just gonna go and add this these pieces of code. I'm gonna delete some part of it because I'm not interested in everything that was showing in there. And I'm gonna click save. The idea it will be when I click and refresh right now, I'm gonna start getting an for example, if I click on this event, I'm gonna start getting an browser alert saying which is the event that I clicked on, right? Multiple dates and so on. So now this is enabled into the calendar. The trick here, it will be to identify which is the actual event and which are the dates of this event, so we can update the event itself. So to do that, I'm gonna go back into the settings of the calendar, and I'm gonna go back here. Now the trick it will be to see to find this is basically the info, is the JavaScript object that's going to give me the information of what the event was which I clicked on. So if I put right now a debugger right now, for example, I can start searching I would like to identify the ID of the event, so I can open a pop-up form with the proper information of that event. So let me click save really quickly, and I'll pull a browser console and side here. Let me refresh this. All right, so let's click on my time. Let me do it again. All right, so at this point, I'm in that piece of code, and now I would like to see which is the value. So it's info dot, maybe we should see the info details here directly. So it's the event itself. Under definition, I have this public ID. The idea it will be that this public ID that I'm seeing here, in this case, it is 7. The trick is that this event definition public ID is actually correlated directly with the events entity that I have here. So the public ID that you are seeing here is actually the event ID that I was passing when generating the calendar. So this is something from the previous episode, how I was generating the calendar. So in that situation, now that I know what I need to do to achieve this ID, I think I can move for the moment in creating the actual form for editing the event. So let me go into the layout mode. Okay, come on. Okay, and let me go and add a new form component to the page. Let me drag it somewhere. I'm gonna put it here for the moment. And let's say I want to manage the form right now. Rearrange those a little. All right. All right, so let me click start. And let's see, this form is gonna be called edit event. And it's gonna have the title, which we have, not this kind of title, sorry. We want to have a text box type of field, which is called title. I want to have a date time picker. I need to have 2 date time pickers, and one is gonna be called start date, and the second one is gonna be called end date. So this is the end date of the event. Okay. Let me go really quickly into the general settings and choose the material template. So we have the same look and feel, and choose the label to be at the top for the same reason. Let me go really quickly into the edit mode and readjust my my fields. And also in the end, we'll need 2 buttons. So one will be edit event. And the second button that I want to add, it will be delete event. So delete. Let's add those also to the form and maybe manage them again. Something like this, maybe, oops, side by side, and make the, oh, I think I put them in the wrong order that I wanted. And let's go to initially, let's go to the buttons and say, you are gonna be a danger button because you are gonna delete this, and you're gonna stay on the left and you're gonna be normal. And the edit event, you should be a primary button and you should flow on the right side. Before I'm gonna make this a pop-up, let's see how the form looks for the moment. All right, so we have, this is gonna be the title, the start date, the end date. We have the option to edit the event or delete the event that it's loaded. Let's exit the layout mode for the moment and go back into the specific form for editing the event. And let's set it up to be in a pop-up form, to be in a pop-up state. Let's remove the initial template. Now I want this to be, I assume, 600 pixels, and say edit event. All right, we have an edit event. We have this form. Now to open the form, if you remember, Plantain App supports a front-end API, so we can use this syntax here, actually open this form through the JavaScript. So I'm gonna save this for the moment, yes. And you can see I can use the JavaScript here and open it here as a, so I did this in the browser console here. I run this query and I open it as a pop-up. So the trick it will be here, whenever I click on one of those items, I want that form to pop up and basically pre-fill all the information that were filled initially. So to do that, I will go to back to the calendar settings. I'm gonna go into the initial execution. Let's make this a full screen, so it's gonna be easier for us. So the idea it will be something like this. I will like to open the form for 103. Let's put it like this. And I want to send the second parameter. It will be the value that I want to pass. So I want to send to the form basically the ID of the event that I'm clicking on. So to do that, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna say event ID, and this is gonna be equal to, and this is this variable is gonna be provided for me from the JavaScript calendar FullCalendar library. So info dot definition dot public ID. That's how it was. Maybe I should still keep the debugger here in case I did some mistakes. I don't need the alert anymore. And let's see. Let's exit full screen mode. Refresh this. All right, and click on the event. Let me see. Info dot.
No, we can't see your other screen, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. So the idea will be that I said info, and it should have been info. All right, so my bad. It should have been info dot event dot definition dot public ID. So this is what I had to pass to the object work. Let me see this really quickly, and let me readjust this. This is my mistake, sorry.
As I said during my part of the presentation, I think we all learn more from your mistakes than from just getting it done. So,
I think you're right.
How to do that, yep.
All right, and let's see, when I click on this, and I'm gonna get the event form open, which is great, but it's not pre-populated yet. So this is the next thing that we need to work on. First of all, I will like to go back and change, remove that debugger that I left, because most likely it's gonna annoy me in 5 minutes or so. So I should remove this, and for the moment, and then let's go back to the edit form. To pre-populate a form, in case you want to edit a record in one of the entities, the best thing to do is just go and search for the action that's gonna, the read action that's gonna bring you all the data. You don't need to write any SQL or any kind of code. So the easiest way to do that is to use the read, in this case, read event action, and pass what event you want to read from. So I know I passed a query string called event ID. So in this situation, the output token is going to be that specific row from the end. So in that, let's say I'm going to have this to be event in this situation. The idea it will be that if I pass, for example, the event number 7, the idea it will be that I will have access to everything that event 7 has: the title, the start date, and the end date, which is great in my case. The idea it will be that now that I have a base token, which is called event, what I can go and do is I'm gonna go to each individual fields that I have and say, hey, I want event. I want the title of the event. And here I want the event column start date, and also I would like the event end date. So those are the three fields that I have. And something that I should do right now, otherwise it's going to look a little bit ugly. I should specify the client format. Let's say year, mount, day, hour, hour, minutes. Otherwise, it's going to be in a ICO standard, which is kind of ugly. Let's see if this works. Let me click on the event, and this is okay. And this is all right, but okay. So this is populated, but those values didn't populate properly because I didn't pass the proper format for the initial value. So let me correct this. Let me correct this in a second. Start date. I think I had to. I never read those, but I should start reading. I think it has an ICO option. Okay, column.ICO date. All right, so that's my ICO. This is the start date, and I should do the same thing to the end date. ICO. All right. Let's try again. Cool. So right now, when I'm clicking on, if I click, let's say, let's go to the week view basically. So if I choose a section, I get the form to add an event. Otherwise, if I click on an event, I get the form to edit the event. Now that I have pre-populated the form, what I need to do right now is to actually make this, resave with new dates. If I want to choose, different dates or different end dates. So I need to do those modifications, and also to make the delete event work. So in this, let's see, let's go back to the edit event. All right. Okay. And to edit the event, I should be able to say, I want the fact that I want to partially update an event. ID of the event is the same value for the one that I've read from, so it's going to be the query string event ID. I need to update the same one, and I need to update the title, the start date, and the end date, and those values are referenced by their counterpart fields in this form. Right? Start date and end date, and also after I'm gonna do the update, I need to close the form itself, not be to close the pop-up itself. Something that I'm missing right now is the fact that I'm only updating the database. I'm not actually updating the front end directly. So I'm gonna come in a minute and do also that. So let's see, if I click on my time and say, hey, I want it to be maybe an hour longer, and I say edit event, well, in this situation, this should, in the database is updated. If I choose to refresh this page and go again, now this got extended with the 1 hour. It's not 7:30 anymore, it's 8:30. If I go click again and say my time edited for, let's say, and click edit event, this is not updating. Well, I need to refresh the page each time to see the relevant information, because relevant information is only getting updated when I refresh the page. So the event entity itself, the database of the event, is not read. So to do that, what I will need to do is go back to the calendar settings in the initialization of the calendar and say something like this. Each time I click on an item on an event in the calendar, I want to save that event. So whenever I do the modifications, I want to update that event. So the idea will be go and say, hey, let's say let's save it on the window in the situation window dot select selected event, let's say, equals with info.event. So let me save it here. So I'm going to save this selected event. So the last selected event is going to be available for me to use to call with JavaScript from any other component on this page. So let's do the save here. All right. Let's click and refresh this. And let's go also and go into the edit event. Go into the edit event in this situation, and let's do a execute JavaScript. Sorry, execute JavaScript and continue action. This is going to execute some JavaScript on whenever I click the button. It's going to go to the database, execute, save the new event details, update the UI, and after that close the pop-up. So to do the update part, I will need to say something like selected event, and the FullCalendar has something called let's say FullCalendar set prop. So I think I have a link here already, where I can go into event and set, for example, set the start date and the end date of the property. So I can go and say, hey, I will need the start date. Sorry, I will need the start date to be the start date that the field has in start date. The field has, and for example, and also I will need set the end date. So set and also to be the end date, and I need to see to modify date related. Sorry, I will like to. I think I can use this value here. Also say selected event dot set property, and the property name that I want to say. I want to say, hey, I want to change the title. I think that's the property, and I want to have it the title, the value of the title.
And you have
so,
to, yeah, you got it.
Yes, I got it. Something like this. All right, let's see. Let me refresh really quickly, and let's for example move the start hour to 1 hour, and edit the event, and it automatically moved. So I think it's more visible if I do it. Let's do something else. Let me put a separate event here really quickly to be changed, and let's add the event here. And now if I click to be changed and say, hey, I want 1 extra hour for it, and it's going to be only 1 hour, and I click edit event, it's automatically going to change into the calendar for me. Now let's see, and regarding the name, this got updated as well. So everything that you change is going to get updated not only here but also in the list of events in a different format into the database. Now, what I would like to, let's see, we have 10 minutes. I think we should be able to manage it. The idea will be that what I want to show you is that we can actually, the calendar supports dragging and editing visually the times. We don't need to click on it and change the dates. So the idea will be that it has something called, let's see, FullCalendar, the drag event, I think it was, sorry. It has a property which is called editable. So if I go back into the calendar and say, let's go back to the calendar init really quickly, I can go back here and say, hey, I know you are selectable from last time, so I can select dates, but I want to be editable also into the, I want to mark it as editable as well. Sorry, come on. And if I click save and refresh this, what's going to enable me is going to let me to actually move elements from a day to another. And also, if I want, I can actually adjust the time and even, put them one over another. And, I can just play with the calendar easily than just clicking and editing some of those. The trick is here that even if visually it's happening, what I'm just showing you, it's not interacting with the actual database to actually save the information of those new dates into the events entity. So whenever I refresh, even if it's a nice gimmick, the fact that we can do this is not actually gonna save those information. So to do that, there are two events that I want to add. So those two events, I have them saved here. Let's go back to the calendar settings. So there are two events here. So the two events that I'm looking for are, let's say, so there are two of them. So it's gonna be eventResizeStop and DeviceDragStop. So let's give them a function each. This, yes, and exactly, let's give them a function, and the function itself, the content of the function should not be here anymore. And let's say I want to alert resize stop. Oh, I think it should be a string, sorry. And I want to do the same here, just to check that those are working at the moment. All right, so the idea will be that I've enabled JavaScript code to give me the proper proper information from when I say, hey, I stop the resizing, or anyway, it's give me an event each time I'm moving something. It's executing the JavaScript code. So the easiest way for me to update those, it will be through APIs. The idea it will be that I'm gonna go really quickly and create one API for me to use for those two events to readjust the date and time behind the scenes in the backend. So to do that, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go behind in configurations, go to the APIs, give it a second or two. I'm gonna say, let's create a new endpoint, and this new endpoint should be called update event. I'm gonna make it a get call, and what I'm gonna say, I want to go and use, I want to pass the event ID, and after that, I want to execute an update, and partially update event. The event ID is going to be the input parameter of the API. So I'm going to put it here. And oh, sorry, yeah, and I also need I need the title passed. I need the start. I need a start date, and I also need end. I need those, so I know if any of those change, I need to be able to update those. All right, let's go and add the three parameters that I want to update. So this is going to be the title parameter, sorry. Title, start, date, and end date. Right, so whenever I have an API, that I specify, if I say, hey, I want to specify that in ID 7, I want the title to be updated from API, and I will need to pass the start date and the end date. This is going to get updated from the API. What I'm interested actually in is the fact that I want to go and copy the AJAX request that I already have for jQuery already prepared for me. And by doing this, I can just go back into the calendar view, go back into the calendar initialization, and say, hey, whenever a resize happens or a drag stops, so someone is interacting with the calendar, what I want to do is I want to actually do this this AJAX request. I'm just going to configure for the moment the resize because I will just need to copy paste them. So we know for a fact that the event ID, the public ID of the event, we can obtain by using what I used earlier. Sorry, I can do something like this. And also for the title, I can do the same thing. So I'm gonna have the title here. And now also I will need to get my start date and end date for me to for this to work. And I do not remember those. So I will need to actually check where I need to get those from. For the moment, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna exit and refresh. Drag an event, maybe I can even drag it from a date or another. And I should do it again, sorry. Oh, my bad. I think I should do the, oh, right, perfect. So I need to drag the events, give me a second. All right, now I'm back into the JavaScript console. Okay, and now I need to pull in the start date and the end date, and I think it's info dot event dot instance, and instance should have the range. Yeah, so it's instance dot range dot start. And I will need this to be an actual, I will need this to actually be in ISO format. So let me see, to ISO string. And this should be the date, that the start date and the new start date and the new end date. And also while I'm here, let me be sure that dot definition. Yeah, okay, so the title is the title property. All right, and I can just copy this for the moment and kind of play this and move this behind and go back into my the calendar settings to set up this in really quickly. And the start date I want to be this, and end date I want to be the same, but it should say end. So in this situation, let me make this a little bigger. So I know the event that I want to update. I know the new title. I know the title. I know the info, the start date, and the end date. The trick it will be to take the same code that I have here and also put it for the drag event, because it's gonna be basically the same thing that I need to know. I need to update the database in those particular situations, and I can just let's make this small again and click save and see if the modifications that I'm gonna do right now are gonna stick with me or not. So where are my, oh, okay, what happened anyway? So let's see. So if I move this from here to here, and let's see, let's move it today actually, and let's make it a little bit bigger. And if I refresh the page, I should have the same element in the proper week. So it's okay. So I think it's saving the day, but it's not actually saving the range. So that may be a small bug in my code or my logic, but I would like to stop here to be respectful of your time. So I'm gonna fix it and give you an explanation what actually happened maybe next time.
Well, you got very close, and along the way, we saw you create the edit, and the delete button was there. Would you be simple to wire that to a delete entity event item? And so I think very easy to finish from. I mean, you left great tracks, is I guess what I'm saying there.
Yeah, I did.
All right, I will show us our end screen, and Bogdan, I see you're there. If you'll talk us out today. Whoop. Wrong button. There we go.
Sure. Great. It was a great event again. It's always even impressive for me to see Radu work. He doesn't let me watch him usually, so that's nice. So thanks everyone for being here again this week, and your feedback is very much appreciated. It's on the link to the feedback form is on the chat. It really helps us improve the content every time. So if you have ideas, suggestions, or special requests, we accept every challenge. So thanks Radu and Dale for contributing content to this webinar, and I guess we'll be seeing each other again next week with new content. Have a nice week until then, everyone.